But today we're going to talk about Chapter 3. We've talked about Chapters 1 and 2. They are entitled The Thing Itself and the Way It Works. And one of the key things that we learned to begin with in all of this is that Ernest Holmes had some very unusual names for God. He called God it, he called God thing. Yeah, he capitalized all this stuff. At least he was, on some level reverent. He called God all kinds of things. Where's my list? Okay, universe, cosmos, divine principle. Another one that might be really unusual is first cause, or the absolute. When we hear those last two terms, a lot of times I think about the Hindu pieces that run through this teaching. Because if you read Ernest and you have any background in any world religions, you will not only see Christianity, you will see Judaism, you will see Buddhism, you will see Hinduism. If you are Native American, you will see some he never speaks much about Native American teachings. You can't stop God. God kind of showed up with the same face and the same stuff in a lot of those different teachings and a lot of those different belief systems. And so they made their way into science of mind too. And Ernest recognized that. He was very clear that this thing that we teach here at Open Door Center was not a revelation that had just been made apparent to him, but essentially a pulling together of the highlights of the thoughts of the ages, all the way back to Greek philosophy, and all the way into things like quantum science that we are just really finding out about today. It's pretty amazing. He went on to say that this is a life, it's a way of life, and it's based upon the best that the world knows. And it's really amazing. He took it one step further, and this is the piece that I love. He said, you can't box God up. The book will never be completely written. The last chapter will never be finished. Because each and every one of us is a direct emissary of that divine consciousness, that truth that is spirit unfolding. So the next piece may be made or may be brought to the universe through you, or you, or you. It could come and does come through every one of us. And when you have one of those kind of epiphany moments, isn't it like you got something and you almost have that feeling that it's so new to the world that you want to run and share it with your friends. Oh, I got this big nugget of awareness, So it's really amazing that he got it. He said no religion will ever, encapsulate God, will never contain that. What it is too big. Pretty sweet. Now he went on to tell us that there's a lot of question about this. People ask about the name religious science, which was the original name of this teaching when Ernest was alive and was finally kind of badgered into starting a non-profit entity that today is Centers for Spiritual Living. He named it some big, long, huge title that I can't even remember, but I know it included the phrase Institute of Religious Science. Well, people today hear that word science and they ask, are you related to Scientology? If you go to the Open Door website and fiddle around on that website, you will find some information about this teaching, and we actually address that there. No, we are not related to Scientology. Ernest said, here's what he said about this teaching, and today it's called Science of Mind. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. I don't know how that shifted. I know the religious science got moved to the background because it bothered people. If you go out there in the mainstream world today and use words like religion or church, you may set people back. They're not as comfortable, with it. And even, people I think of our genre, if you will, can be uncomfortable sometimes. Here's what Ernest said, though, about the religion and the science thing. Out of years of study and thought emerged the system we call religious science. Religion is our idea of God, while science is a knowledge of facts, causes, and principles. These exist independently of our thinking, just as gravitational force does. Religious science is a compilation of the great thoughts about God of the ages, the deep mystical yearnings of minds in search of God, and a modern day approach to the application of those principles. The song that we listened to a few minutes ago, or Annie Sims, Treat and Move Your Feet, says it all. Well, I'll say more about that in a moment, but essentially we are saying to people, if you want what we believe in to be your truth here, then it is your job to pick up your bed and walk. To walk the path, to walk the talk, and not just sit in the corner and espouse truisms. Okay? This is a path for the courageous. I love it. You're so courageous here, yeah. So Ernest Holmes saw this as an application of what was realized from the scientific study of God. This application recognizes that to successfully embody these principles, there must be action. So in the first few chapters that we talked about, before we got to chapter 3 today, we got some basic information, and I'm just going to kind of pedal through that quickly in case you didn't hear it or weren't here to hear it. Ernest reminds us that God doesn't play favorites. And I can't tell you all what a cosmic shift occurred for me when I read that, and it felt true here. Because I had been very much taught that if you behave in a certain way, you'll get good, and if you don't, you will get punished, and that God does indeed pick and choose. And I came here and I learned that that was not my truth anymore. It might be others' truth. That is fine. Bless them. Okay? It's a great path to be on if it works. It did not work for me when I got to the point where I found something different. Ernest reminds us that God is not an anthropomorphic God. God doesn't love, hate, isn't, not to throw off on anyone with any condition, but isn't bipolar in nature, giving, taking, loving, punishing, none of that. And he goes further. He says, if we label God in that way, we discredit that which we are. We discredit the very source of all that is. Yeah. We can't put our human garbage back on God, can we? No. So he got very clear about that. I love it. He goes on to tell us that that God thing, that universal mind, that it is everything. It is all knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of everything there is. To it, all things are possible. I got up this morning, and I get so excited on Sunday mornings. I get up really early, and I do all my stuff, and, the sun was starting to come up, and the cats had been fed, and they were happy, and I finally start opening up the blinds and looking outside to see what kind of a day we've got. And I looked up there at the townhouse, and I noticed that the pavement was really dark looking. And for so many of you who have been to my home, you know that I live at the top of a ski lift. And so I said a few choice words and said, we will make it down the ski lift, on all four wheels, touching the ground, pulling gently out in control of the vehicle. Because I've come down that ski lift a few times in a different manner, and it wasn't fun, and I have no intention of ever doing it again. So I knew that in divine mind, even though it looks like that stuff that could be on the pavement might be what they call black ice, that there was no black ice in my world, okay? I did go out there and go, and I walked out there and I looked at the hill and I went, all things in God are possible. You'll get there, okay? You'll get there in one piece. Your car will even start. So, yeah. Ernest even took it one step further. He tells us that those concepts of things like heaven and hell They're only states of consciousness. So if we don't like where we are, we only have to change what is going on, the focus of our immediate thinking and feeling, and that stuff will change. He went on to say there is no God that punishes us with a burning experience of the afterlife. Well, why not? Okay? What are we going to look at? We looked at the science of mind symbol, and what we recognized was that all of this is about cause and effect. And the causal stuff is up there at the top. We've got it in quotes. It says word, and it might be your word. It might be what you speak. It also might be what you think, or what you believe, or what you have going on a subconscious level and aren't even aware of. It could even be what you're feeling. Okay? Yeah. How many times does what you feel, I should not say this to you, but how many times can what we are feeling and what we are saying be polar opposites? Yeah, it does happen, doesn't it? Okay. But, when we recognize that all that is going out is what is coming back to us, okay? Eventually, maybe not immediately, but eventually, okay? Then we begin to go, oh, gee, maybe I want to know more about what I'm really thinking and what I'm really feeling. And if I'm walking around carrying things that don't feel good, maybe I want to do something about that. Did I say something a few minutes ago about application? Did I say something about action? This is a program of action. Yeah. We see from this that when we look at this, that God doesn't punish, doesn't get us, doesn't have to get us. Whatever goes out, it impacts this universal law thing. That's just another name for God. Okay? And that universal law, it always and only has one answer. It says yes. And that is what flows forth into our world. So if we don't like what's going on, when we change what is being put out there, we will change the effect. We will change the body of conditions in which we are living. If we don't like how we are feeling, we have the capacity through our word, through our knowing, through our feeling, to change it. And the result will be different, won't it? Yeah, it's pretty simple stuff. The motto that they use for the Science of Mind magazine, change your thinking, change your life, it's a real sweet, short truth. Ernest goes on to remind us that the divine mind is infinite. That thing, that world, in every moment we are choosing from an unlimited array of potentialities, of things that can happen. And when we focus on one, like literally taking a prism and allowing the sun to come down through it, we are magnifying the intentionality of that and causing whatever it is focused on to burst into form. If we do that, we know if we do that with a piece of glass or a prism, what will happen? We will start a fire. Yeah, it's powerful. We are no less powerful in that same exact way. Where do we go to here? I think we're on the next page. Yeah. Here's a piece that Ernest says about this that is pretty interesting. He says, insofar as any one of us has spoken the truth, he or she has proclaimed God. It matters not what our particular approach may have been. The scientist and the philosopher, the priest and the professor, the humanitarian and the empire builder, all have caught some gleam of eternal glory, and each has spoken in his or her own tongue that language which of itself is universal, meaning every one of us is a prism of light. Every one of us is a point of mind, a point of light in the mind of God. There is no way we could not be that, because that is what we are of. Now, Ernest goes on in that third chapter to start talking about prayer. And those of you who have been with us for a while know that prayer is a big deal. Here at Open Door Center, we do a lot of praying. We pray ourselves into every service. We pray ourselves out of every service. We consider prayer to be the hallmark of the application of principle here. The coup de grace, if you will, the way to bring things forth. Ernest had a very interesting name for prayer. He didn't call it prayer all the time. He called it spiritual mind treatment. People go, what? Yeah, no. Like, why? Well, the answer when I asked that I was given was, all of this came about at a time when essentially mental science, if you will, or the awareness of the power to corral our thoughts, corral our feelings and all that stuff and bring certain results about was just coming to the fore. And the people before science of mind had recognized this to be the case in one domain, and that was the body of physical health. If we look at other teachings that are similar to this, things like divine science and unity and Christian Science, what we find is that they focus very heavily on changing the nature of physical health. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who founded Unity, both had extenuating physical conditions. Myrtle Fillmore was actually at death's door with tuberculosis, and she went to hear a Christian Science practitioner speak, and she went home and she said, if he can do that, I can do that. It took her 2 years, and every night when she went to bed, she laid there and affirmed to herself that she loved the cells within her body, that they functioned perfectly, that they were made of God's stuff and could only be perfection in form. It took her 2 years. She healed her body. Charles Fillmore had a near-death situation as a child and had one leg that was several inches shorter than the other. He was totally skeptical. He looked at what his wife Myrtle had done, and he didn't believe that it could happen for him. But he said, okay, you did it, I'll try it. And he, being a very non-religious man, began to apply the same principles that are today the principles we use here when we do spiritual mind treatment. And he took that and he grew his leg longer. I don't think he got the entire use of it back, but he was much different after he did that. The word treatment came because at this time that all of this was happening, people were very focused on creating better physical health. And when you go to your doctor, what do you get? You get treated, don't you? You get a treatment of antibiotics or a treatment of, some other medication, and that changes your life. Of course, it might, don't pay attention to what they say on TV. I'm totally skeptical of all the drug commercials, okay? But you recognize that the word treatment came because he wanted people to get it, that when you do this work, you do something that has every bit as much power as if you spend $300 and go see your doctor and then get $150 worth of pills. Okay, maybe more so, because we don't have all those side effects where your things are going to rot off and you're not going to be able to get out of bed in the morning and you're going to want to jump off the 100-foot wall or something. Okay, so yeah. This is great stuff. So he called it treatment, and he went on to tell us that the one who wishes to demonstrate some kind of particular good must become conscious of that good, or if he or she wishes to experience it. He went on to say, there's no hocus pocus here. This ain't no waving of the magic woohoos, okay? This is not wishing, it's not begging, it's not asking, it's not bargaining. It's getting to that place that Carol mentioned, to that Christ consciousness within, that place that knows that we are divine, that place that gets it, that anything that we get clear on can be made manifest. And if you think that we're weird teaching this, I want to tell you Joel Osteen said the same thing in front of 10,000 people last night in Texas, or at least that's what my PBS showed. It might not have been last night that he did it. Now, Ernest went on to say something else. He went on to say basically that this is a lifelong pursuit. We have people who have studied, Carol is one of them, for 3 or 4 years to become what is known as a licensed practitioner. What does that mean? It means that trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. Have you come to meditation or not? You don't have to come to do this, but if you've sat in meditation ever for more than about 30 seconds and you have a mind like my mind, you know that it is like trying to herd cats. And there's a lot of them, and they do not cooperate. They absolutely refuse to. It's really, pretty, I just might as well laugh, okay, when I meditate, because we might as well have a good time watching cats and thoughts go in all those different directions, But when we begin to really train up our thought, when we begin to say, I will not participate in something unlike that which I want, what I want to see in my world, in this world, for me, for you, for every one of us, we step into a place of power that's like that Christ consciousness Carol talked about. That's exactly what that is. Trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. Do ministers use practitioners? You better believe we do. I called up one this week and went, huh! And she doesn't listen to any whining either, okay? They're good at what they do. Treatment is knowing some specific outcome. Ernest went on to tell us that if we want to demonstrate something, we need to have faith. And it isn't just faith. I got faith in the divine, okay? When I get clear, I got faith in the divine. We need to have faith in this, okay? And for many of us, that's a much bigger step to take. Yeah, it's pretty tough sometimes. We need to have faith in our own power, in our own ability, in the principle that we see at work in the universe. And we need to have certainty of the demonstration that we are knowing into form. Yeah, it's really pretty amazing. Ernest goes on to remind us that faith has power consciously to oppose, to neutralize, to erase, and to obliterate the opposite mental attitude. I had an experience recently where I wasn't feeling too good and I had to be somewhere and I had something going on physically and I did not care to participate in that. And I had sat in prayer work and I had, walked away from that feeling better, but it was still bothering me. And I knew the demands coming upon me in the next little while were going to be very intense. And as I got in my car and headed down my driveway, I whipped out the phone and I called a practitioner and I said, don't ask any questions, just shut up and listen. I needed a treat for this, okay, and this, and that is what I need. And she said, goodbye, thank you, it is done. It is so awesome to have someone outside of your own consciousness stand in clarity for you when you're not quite there yourself. I called her at 8:04. At 8:19, the pain was gone. The pain was gone. And it hurt bad, okay? Yeah. So, this stuff works, guys. It's amazing. I love what we do. When we think, something happens to thought. Ernest said that. When we think, something happens to thought. And I believe it is magical. I believe it is powerful. Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. The field through which thought operates is infinite. There is no reason to doubt it. What a minute. That's why it's very simple what we do here. We not only claim this truth for us, whatever that truth might be in the moment. It might be a pain-free experience. It might be a cyst or a tumor that we see no need for in our lives. It might be the presence of greater income or more expansive self-expression through work. Okay, I don't like that word, but through creative self-expression, right? Wonderful stuff. It might be a world of peace, not only for us, but for the rabbits in the parking lot. And Beans, Jefferys, who's, he walked in with a label. He's a pit bull, okay? He belongs to my family, you can tell, right? It might be wholeness for someone who in that moment isn't quite where they can know it for themselves. When we do this, we simply see worlds unfold. It is so powerful. I love it. So do this stuff, okay? sit in knowingness with us. This book is a bargain. When I bought the 26 version, which was a hardback, it cost me $30. When I bought the 38 version, which is, you've seen, it's the white one that I carry around that's been taped back together. I didn't bring it today. It needs to go in an intensive care unit or something. It was $20. So together they cost me $50. This book is $20. Get something good to read and sit in it. Okay? Sit with it. Allow it to wash over you. Carol loves Joel Goldsmith. Stacy said last week that she loves this book by Karen Corp. Karen will bring her books when she comes on February the 20th. Get something out of our library. Come tomorrow evening at 6 and meditate with us. And let us sit in clarity and know what it is ours to know, which is always good and always whole and always right. I love you. Thank you.